This is where we left off last in the lecture, according to my notes. So we had talked about the different points on the rubric. You have the thesis point, which goes in your intro, your context point, which goes in your intro. And then we talked about evidence points, where you can get 1 point for doing the content of 3 docs, 2 points for doing the content for 6 docs, and 1 point for outside SFI. Okay, then you can get a point for HIPP if you do 3 documents. Now, what's the difference between content and context? Content is a summary, reading comprehension. Tell me what the document is describing. Okay, context is give me background information from the document. Like if your summary statement is about Christopher Columbus and the New World, then give me some background as to how did he come to be involved with the New World? How did he end up getting there in the first place? Okay, but if you only do this for 1 document, you're not getting any points. Okay, you have to do it for 3 documents. So that's what we're going to do with this practice right here with this document. We're going to call this document document A. So remember, at the end of your sentence using the document, you have to cite it, not MLA cite, not APA cite, but just regular old doc and then the letter or the number. So nothing too fancy there. So what I want y'all to do in the chat is give me a summary of this document. The main idea, reading comprehension. What is this document trying to tell us? And you don't need to quote, it should paraphrase. Who is this guy? Does anyone know? Christopher Columbus. Good. Okay, what is this area? What does it say in the document? Okay, so we are talking about the New World, the Americas. When he says it's a nice nation you got there, he's talking about the Native Americans. Okay, and that it would be a shame if someone discovered it. Okay, I see some people commenting. The document tells us about how Christopher Columbus discovered the New World. It doesn't tell us how he did it, but it does tell us that he did, quote unquote, discover it. Someone in the chat said this document is trying to tell us that someone did indeed discover it, and it is the person the document shows that discovered it, indirectly telling people I discovered it. Okay, well, I got to write down 110. And then another person in the chat says Christopher Columbus discovers North America even though the Native Americans were already living there in civilizations. Okay, I like that one there because you also did the documentation. So I'm going to type that out for everybody to see. Christopher Columbus discovered, make sure you're past tense, let's say the Americas, because he didn't even land in North America. He landed in the Caribbean. And then let's say which had negative consequences for the Native Americans already living there in civilizations. Civilizations. It tried to autocorrect COVID. All right, and then Doc A, just like you did in the chat. Okay, that's our content statement, the main idea of this document. Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas And that had a negative effect on the Native Americans that already lived there. Hence him saying that's a nice nation, okay, already civilizations there. It would be a shame, negative consequences, if someone discovered it. He discovered it. Christopher Columbus did. Okay, now when you're referring to historical figures, you should not refer to them by just their first name. So I couldn't be like, Christopher discovered the Americas, okay, because I'm not on a first name basis with Christopher Columbus, okay? And if I'm just now introducing him, I can't say Columbus, right? I have to say the full name one time at least. Christopher Columbus did this. Then from then on in the essay, I can just say his last name and go from there. Okay, so now let's look at the HIPP statement we could do for this. H stands for historical context, background of what's going on in the document. So background on Christopher Columbus's discovery, the intended audience of the document, the purpose of the document, and the point of view of the author of the document. Well, I'm already going to tell y'all the only one we can do for this document is H. And let me tell you why. Do we know the author of this meme? No, we do not. It could be anybody from anywhere. It's from the internet. Okay. So I can't do point of view. I can't do corn peg. Okay. Their class, their occupation, their race, their religion, their nationality, their political affiliation, their ethnicity, their gender. I can't do any of that point of view if I don't know who the author is. So I can cross that out. The purpose of the document. Well, it's not relevant to the thesis. The purpose of a meme is to be funny. It's to make people laugh. And then maybe even be a little bit educational, right? But that's not relevant to my thesis of causes and effects or continuities and change due to the Colombian exchange. Okay, a funny meme doesn't tie back to economic causes or political causes or religious effects. So I can cross out that because it's not relevant to my argument. The intended audience of the document. Well, y'all, if you put something on the internet, the intended audience is probably, everybody, okay, because they'll stay there forever. And so we can't really talk about how the intended audience of this meme was AP World History students who followed the History and Memes Instagram page, right? It's not relevant to our thesis. The only part that would back up our thesis and our argument about causes and effects or continuity and change would be historical context, which is different from content. Okay, context isn't just a summary of what the document says. It's not just reading comprehension. It's what do you know about this topic? So what are some things that we know about the background information of Christopher Columbus getting to the Americas in 1492? Give me some background information on why Christopher Columbus came to the New World in the first place.
He was trying to find a new route to India.
Exactly. For what?
Spices.
Spices. Why?
Because the land route was controlled by the Ottomans.
Exactly right. The land route, the Silk Road to India, to the spice trade, was controlled by the Ottomans. The Mediterranean Sea was controlled by the starts with an I. Shaped like a boot.
Oh, Italy.
Italy, the Italians. Good. The Italian merchants. And the route around Africa was controlled by
Didn't Vasco da Gama go?
right. And what mother country sent him?
Spain?
Not Spain, but right next door to Spain. Portugal, exactly right, on the Iberian Peninsula. And then someone said in the chat, he thought he was in Asia. Okay, all of that is background information. Now, how do you put that into a sentence? Give me one sentence of historical context and a reminder of how to do that in the DBQ folder on Schoology. If you click on HIPP Part 2, it'll open to this and give you little sentence starters. So you could say, during this time, during 1492, this was an era of, the historical backdrop for document A was, what was happening at the time was. Okay, these are starter sentences for historical context for that document. So go ahead and throw in the chat one of those starters and then some of the background information that we just stated. During this time, Columbus attempted to sail from Spain to India, but landed in the Americas instead. Okay, good. That is historical context. You're setting up the background for what is this document talking about. He was paid, even though he's Italian, y'all. Okay, his nationality was Italian, but remember, Italy doesn't exist yet. Okay, it's not its own country. He was working for Spain for the king and queen, Ferdinand and Isabella. Someone else wrote Columbus, sent by Spain, sought spices for wealth and sought, wait, hold on, sorry. Yeah, okay. So Columbus was sent by Spain to seek a route to get to spices in India and China, but landed in the Americas. Okay, that brings up another thing that we can talk about right now. I see a lot of people use seeked, and it should be sought because that's an irregular verb in English, which are the tricky ones. Like I always have this issue of like, there's to pay, and the past tense is this, not this. Okay, but I can't tell you like how many times I see that. It's like, it's not said, it's said. Like it's not paid, it's paid. But that's just another irregular verb. So English is just like 3 different languages in a trench coat. And we break all of our rules. Someone else said Christopher Columbus went to the New World in search for spices to bring back to the King and Queen of Spain. Perfect. And what I like about what you did there, Bashana, is that you cited the document at the end. So I'm going to try to combine all of those together. Christopher, can't spell Christopher. Columbus, or since you've already said Christopher Columbus, you can just say Columbus. Was sent west by the King and Queen of Spain, seeking a new route to India and China for spices. However, instead he landed in the Caribbean. How do I spell Caribbean? Caribbean. That's not how you do it. Let's go with that. Okay, and then document A. Okay, so that summarizes why he was in the Americas in the first place, who sent him, and for what. So you've answered 3 different questions right there with just one single sentence. Now, does it have to be in a single sentence? No. You can write multiple sentences of historical context or intended audience or purpose or point of view, but you can do it in one sentence if you choose, okay? Because you only got 45 minutes to write this essay. Now, how many points have we earned with those 2 sentences we just wrote for content and context? How many points from the rubric? Okay, we've got 0 points. Okay, because I need to do 3 documents with content, and I need to do 3 documents with HIPP. We just did document A. That's 1 document. Okay, so we've got 0 points so far because we still have to level up and get 2 more documents. Once we do 3 total, then we're in. Okay, now to get 2 points, you need to do 6 documents. Okay, so I think that's what you're talking about, Prashana, is the 6 documents total in the entire essay. You're right, because you get 7 documents total, but you need to use 6 out of the 7. Okay, so you have 1 that's just a burner document. Does that make sense so far? Okay. So just a recap for body paragraphs. You need to state the main point as a topic sentence. A topic sentence, because remember, you make categories in your thesis. If you're doing cause and effect, then you've already written out what your body paragraphs are going to be. Let's say political cause, economic cause, and then economic effect, demographic effect. Okay, so now that you've got your body paragraphs, you have to have a topic sentence for each of those body paragraphs. So for instance, if I were to write the topic sentence for economic causes, I would state the major drive behind, so cause, the major drive behind exploration lay in the Europeans' desire for wealth. So that's my topic sentence there in the chat. The major drive behind exploration, cause, lay in the Europeans' desire for wealth, economic. Okay, then everything after that topic sentence is going to be about economic causes. It's got to talk about bullion. It's got to talk about the spice trade. It's got to talk about the encomienda. It's going to talk about cash crops. Okay, the desire for wealth, not just in the form of gold, but also silver and other profit-making crops. Okay, and then I can put in my document. So I have my outside SFI, and let's say documents 1, 2, and 5 fit under economic causes. Okay, then in my next body paragraph, I need to talk about economic effects. That would say the majority of the economic effects for the Europeans were largely positive as they gained much wealth from their colonies. That's my topic sentence. I'm going to talk about how great the Colombian exchange was for the Europeans economically. Okay, and then I might have outside evidence. And let's say docs 3 and 7. Okay, so you have to categorize them and bucket them, okay, into different layers for your essay. So use examples from different documents in each paragraph, and then use examples from the document to support your thesis. So examples from the document, that's content. Summarize the document and say how it relates to economic causes. Say, for instance, your first document is a map showing Portugal's route around Africa. It shows Bartholomew Diaz getting halfway there and then Vasco da Gama getting all the way there for the Portuguese. You could say that the document's content was the maritime route that the Portuguese established to the spice trade. And then how do you use that to support economic causes? Well, the spice trade was a source of wealth. This catalyzed the Spanish venture to go west. It caused them to go west to find their own route to the spice trade. So that's using the content of the doc, which in this case would be a map going around Africa, Vasco da Gama's trip, to support your thesis. But that's not the only document you could use. You don't just need to use the map. You could also put in a graph showing the increase in the rate of silver from 1492 until the 1700s in Spain, and how high that graph gets. Okay, so you can have multiple documents in a body paragraph. Can you reuse the same document in different paragraphs? Yes, but it still only counts as one document. Let's say that document 1 fits for political cause. Let's say document 1 good for economic cause. That's perfectly fine, but you can't count it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 documents. This is still just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 documents. Okay, same thing with HIPP. Let's say for document 1, you do H, and you do I, intended audience, and you do P, purpose. Is this enough to get you the HIPP points? No, because the HIPP point says you have to do 3 documents, not 3 HIPPs, 3 different documents. This is still just one document that you've just done H, I, and P for. The way to get this point is to use 3 different documents, even if you do H for all of them. If you're just like, I want to do historical context for documents 1, 2, and 3, that's fine. If you want to do historical context, intended audience in historical context, that's fine. If you want to do one of the point of views for document 3, that's fine. Okay, but it does have to be 3 different documents in order to get that point. Now we tell you to do 4 documents, not because it gets you any bonus points, but let's say that you try to interpret the point of view of document 3 and you get it completely wrong. Let's say document 3 was by Bartholomew de las Casas, and we know that he was super against the encomienda and he was super Catholic. But what if you're talking about the article and you say, oh, Bartholomew de las Casas was a Protestant conquistador? Like, no, he wasn't Protestant. That's not the case. He was Catholic. So if you get your point of view mixed up for document 3, but for document 4, you did like an extra document, then I still would count 1, 2, 3, even though you got this one wrong, because you still did at least 3 documents where you did HIPP. Same thing for content. You have 7 documents. You can do content statements for all 7 of them, just in case one of your content statements is incorrect. Then you have a backup and you can still qualify for the point. And then again, make sure you cite. In a normal year, how I grade is I go through your essay and I look for the parentheses and I highlight them so I don't miss a document, because I'm going to read your essay more than once. Okay, but the AP exam, the readers in May are not going to read your essay more than once. Okay, they're going to read it one time and then no. Just as a recap for what the rubric is, we have thesis, that's intro. We have context, that's intro. And we have 2 to 3 body paragraphs. Okay, with 3 documents doing summary, 6 documents doing a summary, and 1 piece of outside evidence. Now we also tell you to do 2 pieces of outside evidence. Okay, so we tell you use 7 docs, so you have 1 to drop in case it's wrong for content. Do 4 HIPPs, so you have 1 in case you need to drop because it's inaccurate, and then do 2 pieces of SFI just in case one of your pieces is wrong. And remember, you can't just drop in a vocab word and say the encomienda was a thing. You have to explain how it's relevant to your thesis. Okay, if you're talking about demographic effects in the New World, then yeah, you should be talking about the encomienda because that's a bad effect. But if you just name drop vocabulary words, that's not going to be enough. It has to be more than a phrase or a reference, and it can't be the same evidence you used in context. Okay, that would be double dipping. So more than a phrase or a reference, and these points must refer to different facts from that time period. So like if your background information in your intro was about the Renaissance, you can't then go and in your body paragraphs talk about the Renaissance again and have that count as the second point. That's not how it goes. The last part of the rubric is what we're on now with part D, analysis. The HIPP point, and this goes in your body paragraph. And the complexity point. Remember, that's the unicorn point, the most difficult one to get. Okay, so we tell y'all to maybe not focus so much on the complexity point. Y'all have done a thesis and a context before. You know how to write an intro paragraph. You can find 1 piece of outside evidence about this topic that could support your thesis. You can use 3 documents, right? But when it comes to complexity, that's where it gets a little bit, complex. Now, the easiest way to get complexity is to just talk about multiple historical thinking skills. So if you're given cause and effect and you're told, hey, your essay has to be about causes and effects, well, then throw in some similarities and differences too. Throw in some continuity versus change over time. Okay, doubling up on your historical thinking skill can qualify you for the complexity point. But again, it's one of those more difficult ones. So don't spend all your time worrying about the unicorn point. Worry about the thesis and your context and your outside evidence and your documents. That's going to get you closer to a passing score. Okay. And again, with HIPP, you need to use 3 documents and not only explain what their historical context, the audience purpose or point of view is, but also how it's relevant to your argument. Okay. So if you had a map of the route around Africa by the Portuguese, how is that relevant to your essay about causes and effects? Well, you're talking about economic causes. So this document, this map, indicates a economic cause, an economic cause of desire for access to the spice trade. Okay, so you're taking these documents and you're using them to back up what you're saying about this time period. Does that make sense so far? Okay, so here we go again. We are going to use this document, which we're going to call document A, and we're going to do a content statement, okay, and a HIPP statement. But first, let's read the prompt that goes with it. Analyze the effects. So already I know, what is my historical thinking skill? Cause and effect, exactly. Now this essay is going to focus more on on effects, but you definitely can talk about causes too, so you can get both halves of that HTS point. The effects of the Colombian exchange on the population. So it already gives you a category. It already tells you have to talk about population. So this will be a paragraph. And the economy, yet another paragraph. So our categories are demographic and economic. Those are our 2 main body paragraphs. And it specifically says the effects on Europe. So will we be talking about smallpox in the New World? No. Will we be talking about the encomienda, not for population, but maybe for the economy of Europe? Okay, we'll be talking about the price revolution, the influx of silver, the Quinto del Rey. We're not talking about the New World or Asia or Africa in this essay. It specifically says demographic and economic effects in Europe because of the Colombian exchange. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice with this. I want y'all in the chat to make a content statement, a summary statement for this meme, which we're going to call document A. Oh, well, first, which category do you think this document is going to fall into? Demographic or economic? Economic, exactly right. Some key words that hint you off to that. I closed the spice trade. How do you get to India? Going around Africa. It's talking about the Ottoman Empire and the Portuguese Empire. So yeah, the spice trade exactly is going to indicate to you, this isn't talking about the population increasing or decreasing. It's talking about the economy, the drive for wealth. So I want y'all to give me a content sentence. summarize what's going on in document A. Okay, so someone in the chat, I'm going to read it out loud. This document represented that the Ottoman Empire controlled the spice trade connecting to India, and Portugal found a way to get around that by going around Africa. The people speaking represent the empire/country. Okay, so I'm going to type that into this document. The Ottoman Empire controlled the spice trade connected to India, and Portugal found a way to get around, let's see, the Ottoman monopoly by going around Africa. Okay, so remember, the Ottoman controlled the, let's say, the Silk Road route to the spice trade connected to India. And Portugal found a way to get around the Ottoman monopoly by going around Africa. And then, like you did in your example, you cite it, Doc A. Okay, how many points have we gotten so far? 0, because we've only done 1 out of 3 documents. Okay, but that doesn't mean we're done with this document once we describe it. We also need to HIPP it. Okay, so looking at those historical thinking skills, do we know the point of view of the author? No, because we don't know the author. Can we do purpose of a meme? Is that relevant to our essay? No, because we don't, the purpose of a meme is to make people laugh. That has nothing to do with economic or demographic effects. Can we do intended audience of the meme? No, because it's not relevant to our thesis. It doesn't support our argument. That means the only one we can do is historical context. So I need y'all to give me some background information. Why did Portugal go around Africa? What is some information about the Portuguese finding this maritime route? What did they have to do in order to succeed in this? Do that in a complete sentence. Okay, so I see somebody wrote, the Portuguese sent, okay, I'm going to type this out so everyone can see it. The Portuguese sent Vasco da with an A, Gama, all the way around the southern tip of Africa in order to find a route to India, because the Ottomans controlled the Silk Road and the Italians controlled the sea route. Okay, so we fix this. Sent Vasco all the way around the southern tip of Africa in order to find a maritime route due to the Ottoman monopoly on the Silk Road and the Italian monopoly on the Mediterranean Sea. Did you not put that because it's too hard to spell? Yeah, no, that's fair. Just do your best. Like do Mediterranean, so they'll figure it out. Because remember, on the AP exam in May, spelling doesn't matter. As long as you're close enough that they know what you're talking about, you're Gucci. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, they are doing a virtual version, I think, this year. Oh, let me capitalize C because that's proper noun. Okay, and then again, doc A. Okay, so remember from our analyzing HIPP, if you really want to tell the reader, hey, I'm doing historical context, you can use one of these starter sentences. So I'm going to put the historical backdrop for document A. The historical backdrop for document A was that, and then I don't have to do parenthetical citation, okay, because this is called in-text citation. It's literally in the sentence, document A, versus parenthetical, which is literally in parentheses. So the historical backdrop for Doc A was that the Portuguese sent Vasco da Gama all the way around the southern tip of Africa in order to find a maritime route due to the Ottoman monopoly on the Silk Road and the Italian monopoly on the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, now let's see if we can get a point with outside SFI. Because remember, outside SFI, you only need one piece of evidence. Okay, for content and HIPP, you need 3 documents to get a point. For outside SFI, you just need to give a piece of evidence. But remember, you have to tie it back to your thesis. And your thesis is asking about economic effects in Europe. Okay, so what's some outside SFI in a complete sentence that we could put there? Either relating to economic effects in Europe or how the Portuguese were able to get around Africa in the first place. Not just like who went, like Vasco da Gama, but how were they able to make it all the way to India? Portugal had an increase in wealth due to the Asiento slave trade that was a result of Vasco da Gama's expedition. So I see you put DE, it's supposed to be DA, but I know that's, if you take Spanish, it's like, yeah, I always put DE, day. All right, so our outside SFI, as a result of these expeditions, Portugal created a trading post empire around the coast of Africa, which led to their increase in wealth as they had exclusive rights to the Asiento slave trade. Due to the Treaty of Tordesillas. And since it's a treaty and I'm typing it, it's italicized. Y'all, if you were handwriting it, it would be in, well, actually, no, since it's a treaty, it would be underlined. Okay, so if you're typing, the title of written works is italicized. If you're handwriting it, you can't write in italics. That's not cursive, right? Instead, you underline it to indicate that's the title of a book or a written work. Okay, so as a result, you're doing effects. Okay, that's directly related to your thesis. As a result of these expeditions, Portugal created a trading post empire, that certainly sounds economic, around the coast of Africa, which led to their increase in wealth as they had exclusive rights to the Asiento slave trade due to the Treaty of Tordesillas. So you've not only name dropped Asiento or Trading Post Empire or slave trade or Treaty of Tordesillas, you've also explained how it relates back to your argument. Okay, but these sentences by themselves are not an essay. They are not a paragraph. We have to tie them together. So how do we tie them together? With a topic sentence. Now, the way that that our HIPP and our content is worded leads me to believe we're talking about economic causes. And remember, like Ethan said, we are doing cause and effect, causation for this prompt. Even though it says mostly effects of the Colombian exchange, we are also talking about the causes of the Colombian exchange. So how would you create a topic sentence for this paragraph? If you're going to put all of this together, how would your topic sentence go? It would be the first, well, why wouldn't it be this first sentence? Because this first sentence is a document, okay? You can't, in your topic sentence, your very first sentence of your paragraph, you should not be citing any documents, okay? Because the documents have to go under your topic sentence. So what is this paragraph about? Is it about document A? No, it's about economic causes. So how would you tie economic causes to this prompt? An easy way to do it would be to say the economic causes of the Colombian exchange included what? Yes, good. A generic introduction to the details in the paragraph. Like you don't start your body paragraph and say, boom, evidence. You have to transition. These are called transitions. population growth in Europe was an effect of the Colombian exchange, a demographic effect. We're talking about economic causes. What led to the Colombian exchange to happen? How did the Colombian exchange happen? What was the driving force that led to Spain and Portugal attempting to explore in the first place? The three G's. Good. So the economic causes of the Colombian exchange included the desire, I'm not typing, included the desire for material wealth. Okay, so that would be the introductory sentence. So if I were going to make that even more AP though, I would say that the driving force, so the main factor, the driving force behind the discovery of the New World and the subsequent Columbian exchange was the desire for material wealth. First in the form of spices, then gold and silver, and then cash crops. That's my topic sentence. That tells the reader, and notice I didn't cite anything, I just made a claim. That tells the reader, oh, this is going to talk about the main cause behind the Columbian exchange. Because remember, we're doing causation. So not just effects, but also causes. So what caused the Columbian exchange? The desire for material wealth. Specifically, spices. And even in the paragraph, I talk about getting to the Indian Ocean, getting to the spice trade, and what the Spanish and the Portuguese had to do in order to do that. Then gold and silver. We're going to talk about the gold and silver in the New World. And then eventually cash crops with the institution of the encomienda and the asiento. Okay, so in this body paragraph, I have topic sentence first. Do not cite any documents. Okay, your first sentence of your body paragraph should not have evidence yet. It's simply making a claim. Are you talking causes or effects? Economic, positive, negative, demographic, social? Give me an idea of what this paragraph is going to be about. Then you can get into using the documents. Okay, the content statement, the HIPP statement, outside SFI statement. Now, how many points have I earned with just this one paragraph? How many points have I earned? 1. Okay, I've done content, but only for one document, and I need 3. Okay, I've done HIPP, but only for one document, and I need 3. So where did my 1 point come from? Yeah, this sentence in green. Well, what point on the rubric does this sentence represent? Outside evidence. Remember, on the rubric, it says that outside evidence, I'm going to put us over to the rubric, gets you 1 point. How many pieces of outside evidence do you need? Just 1. Okay, we tell you to do 2 just in case your 1 is wrong. Okay, so I don't get the content point yet because I have only done document A. I don't get the second point for using the documents because I need 6. I only get this outside evidence point in that paragraph that we just wrote. Now, y'all shouldn't think of paragraphs in terms of how long they are. Like if you're writing this paragraph and you're like, oh my goodness, I've already written 7 sentences, I have to start a new one. We're not grading you on how long your paragraphs are. We're not sitting and counting, okay, they wrote this many sentences. That counts as a paragraph. Or, oh, that's too long, minus points. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for, did you answer the question? Okay. So could you keep writing in this paragraph, even though you've already got 4 sentences? Yeah, you can move on to the next document. Maybe document B is a chart of silver imports in Spain. Okay, that would be another document that you can then do content and HIPP or another piece of outside evidence. So if you're still talking about economic causes, then keep talking about them until you're done talking about economic causes. Then hit enter tab for your second body paragraph, which may be economic effects or political effects. Okay, so don't get caught up in, oh, how many words or how many sentences do I need to write for my body paragraph? As many as you need to answer the question. Does that make sense so far? All right, move us back to the PDF. So now we're going to look at an AP question, an AP essay. Oh, well, first let's go over HIPP skills. What's H? What is H of HIPP? Historical context with an X. Okay, remember, this is the analysis point. Context is background information. That's different from content. Content is just reading comprehension. Can you give me a summary of what document A, document B is about? Okay, so for content, you need 3 to 6 documents. For context, okay, for HIPP skills, you only need 3. Okay, and they can all be HIPP, or they can all be H, they can all be I, they can all be P, or you can mix and match. Okay, so content with an N is summary, reading comprehension, no outside evidence. You don't need to know anything outside of the document. Context is background information. Set the stage for that document. What is I? What is I of HIPP skills? Good. Intended audience for the document, not who's reading it right now. Don't say, oh, I'm the intended audience because I'm reading. That's not it. Okay, Christopher Columbus was not writing to you. Bartholomew de las Casas was not writing to you. Okay, what about the first P? Purpose. Good. The purpose of the document. Why was Bartholomew de las Casas writing on the destruction of the Indies? What was he trying to do with that book? Does anyone remember Bartholomew de las Casas? Former conquistador. Then he became a Catholic priest. He wrote this book, and his main purpose behind writing the book was to convince Spain to stop doing what? Enslaving the Native Americans. Okay, because remember, they don't control the Asiento. The Spanish have the encomienda. So he was writing about how awful the encomienda was under the Spanish. And then the Protestants are going to use that as anti-Catholic propaganda, but then still treat the Native Americans the same way as the Catholics. So yes, to try to end slavery of the Native Americans. Was he successful? Yes and no. He ended the encomienda, but then it just popped up under other names like haciendo and repartimiento. Okay. Propaganda is what the earlier word. Oh yeah, persuasion is like purpose. The purpose is persuasion. Exactly right. And he was kind of successful, kind of not successful. What about the last P? What does POV mean? Point of view. And for point of view, you have to know the author, or at least know some aspects of corn peg. Okay, so like if you know someone is an Islamic merchant, then you can probably tell what their point of view is in the document. If you know if it's Christopher Columbus, you know his point of view. If you know it's Bartholomew de las Casas, you know his point of view. But if it's just Jimmy Bob, then you don't know who that is. You can't make any assertion as to what their point of view is. Okay, so let's go over corn peg. What does C stand for? Class, good. Class means social class. Where are they in the social hierarchy? If this is King Ferdinand and Isabella writing, where are they going to fall on this pyramid? Yeah, very high, very tall. They're going to be up here. We're not going to see a lot of written works from people down here in the social hierarchy because education is very what? Expensive. Okay, so only the higher members of society can have access to education. Like Christopher Columbus, he's probably not here at the bottom. He's closer to middle class and up because he knows how to read and write and read maps and do math, although not well enough to make it to India. But still, he was educated. So he's going to be higher up here. The king and the queen of any country are going to be high up here in this social hierarchy. Okay, me as a teacher, let's say you're reading an article I wrote about education, right? I'm probably going to be in like the lower middle class. Does that mean I'm not educated? No, it's just in my time period, education is free to the public. Okay. What about O? What is O? Occupation, which is just a $20 word for job. So if we're writing about Christopher Columbus, his occupation, he's an explorer, a conquistador. Bartholomew de las Casas, he's a priest. Okay. Me, if you're reading an article I wrote, I'm a teacher. Now, if I'm writing an article on education, then occupation would probably be the strongest part of corn peg that you have for me because I'm writing about education. What does that mean about the reliability of my article? It means it's probably very reliable because I know what I'm talking about because I'm in the education field, as opposed to if I were writing an article about sports. Is that going to be very reliable? Absolutely not. I know nothing about sports ball. I know you get the checkmate when you kick the football into the goalpost. Pretty sure. You're trying to get the king. Oh, and you're trying to get your quarterback, which I don't understand why they're all upset over a quarter. I mean, it's like 25 cents. Maybe they had to go to Aldi's. What about R? Religion. Now, if I'm writing an article on education, does my religion have anything to do with that article? No, so I'm probably not going to talk about that aspect of corn peg if you're doing my point of view. Okay, but there's another R related to corn peg. What is it? Race. Okay, are there racial disparities in the field of education? Yes, so that could be relevant to that article on education. So you may want to hold that into consideration. But occupation as a teacher, probably the strongest one so far. What is N? Nationality. What country am I teaching in? the United States. So I'm going to know a lot about the educational system in Alabama or in the United States. Like I'm going to know about the IDEA Act and FERPA laws and 504s and IEPs and all of that. Okay, but I'm not going to know much about Europe at all. I don't know how they do things. I don't know if they like start as early as we do. I do know that teachers in France get to drink wine with their lunch. So that's a little bit different. Okay. But I don't know much outside of the United States. So that could affect the reliability or even some bias that I may have. Like, what if I say, oh, America's got the best education system anywhere? Okay. I could be biased because I am from America. Okay. What about P? What does P stand for? Political affiliation. Okay. Different political parties, affiliation. Democrat, Republican, Independent, Socialist, Green Party. Okay. They have different ideas about what education should be. Okay. Like you have difference between the Democrats and the Republicans regarding student loan forgiveness. You have differences between Republicans and Democrats regarding charter schools or private schools or those tax credits that you can get to go to certain schools. Okay. So political affiliation could relate to my article on education. Say if I were specifically talking about charter schools. Like there's going to be a meeting tomorrow with the school board about opening a new charter school. That could play into my point of view, whether I'm for or against it. What about E? What is E? Ethnicity. Good. Which is different from race. Okay. So let's say if you're of African descent, you could be of African descent from the southern United States and have a very different vernacular, a different language, a different culture than someone who's lived in South Africa their entire life. Okay, even though you're both of African descent, it doesn't necessarily mean that your ethnicities and your cultures are going to be the same. Okay, so some slight variation there. What does G stand for? Gender. The teaching profession is majority female. Okay, so that could play a role into what I'm writing about in that educational article. Okay, so my gender could play a role. In terms of period 2, which remember is 1450 to 1750, that's the period we're in right now, we're not going to have a lot of works by women. Okay, you have some like Elizabeth I and Catherine the Great being from Russia and, well, technically Germany, but she was the queen of Russia, the Tsarina, and Elizabeth I ruling England. But for the most part, we're only going to be looking at male perspectives. With the Colombian exchange, we're primarily going to be looking at European perspectives. So we're losing a big chunk of the history and the point of view just by not having preserved those works.